Don't Depend on Daddy is an unfiltered safe space, empowering young professionals to build independence in their 20s and beyond, whether it be personal, professional, or financial. Regardless of your age, relationship status, or job title, the most consistent person in your life is you. So join me and let's build our independence together. Enjoy! Hello, and welcome back to Don't Depend on Daddy, the podcast. My name's Michela. I am your host, and today I'm very excited for this episode because we are going to be talking about time management and how I do everything that I do. Because I feel like I am someone who I've really tried everything when it comes to like productivity hacks and time management and optimizing my time and whatnot. And this is sort of the overarching system. I don't even know if system is the right word, that I follow now that has helped me grow my socials, balance having my business, stay healthy, have a social life, work out, all the things. Before we get into it, I'm going to run through all the usual housekeeping. So as always, you can get $10 off the Personal Finance Dashboard, which is my signature comprehensive money management tool, using the code podcast1. If you're interested in learning more about the PFD, all the details are in the show notes, and I'll also make sure the tag to watch the video tour is on the screen. Second, I recently launched my brand new template called the Basic Budgeting Template. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It is just a basic template to help you create and stick to a budget. I received tons of requests over the last few years for a tool that was a little simpler than the PFD. And so that is exactly what this is. And so many of you guys have gotten it already and let me know how much you enjoy it. So I'm really excited to get all of your feedback, obviously, and get more people to use it because I think it's a really awesome tool, especially if you're not super comfortable, I would say, in like a Google Sheets or an Excel. Not that you have to be to use the PFD because there's a whole library of like videos to help you get the most out of the template and make sure you know how to use it and whatnot. But I think this is just a little less of an overwhelming template for those of you who are a little bit earlier on in your journey and just trying to dip your toes into managing your money. Moving on is reminder that you can come join the fun over on the Don't Depend on Daddy Instagram. So I've mentioned this last week, but basically I am using the Don't Depend on Daddy Instagram as sort of my like own personal lifestyle Instagram, and I'm having a lot of fun with it because not only is a lot of the topics that I share on Don't Depend on Daddy like lifestyle focused as opposed to being financially focused, which is what my main page, Break Your Budget, is all about. But it also gives me the opportunity to like share some of the lifestyle stuff that I implement, follow, etc. in my personal life outside of running my business. And I've shared a little bit of that on Break Your Budget, but Don't Depend on Daddy is kind of my place where I'm doing that this year and going forward, and I'm committing to it. So ultimately, I'm going to rebrand that Instagram to just be my name, but for the time being, it's still going to be the Don't Depend on Daddy podcast Instagram, but I'm going to be sharing all lifestyle stuff over there. And I do also want to let you know that I have an LTK and a ShopMy. This is another area that I'm really focused on this year, not necessarily to like earn commission per se, but really more so that I can highlight and showcase the things that I personally use and that are personally, in my opinion, worth buying. And then B, so I can also transparently like start working with some different types of brands, because even though I shared stuff in the past on my Break Your Budget page, I don't have any like analytics about it. And so really the purpose of me having an LTK and like telling you to go look at it isn't to encourage you to buy something. It's to help me gather like analytics and whatnot to share with brands. And then obviously if you do choose to buy something, it would be great if you used my links, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So everything that I, talk about on the Don't Depend on Daddy Instagram is all funneled through my LTK and my ShopMy. I have someone who's helping me with that, and it was my first hire for Break Your Budget, which is really exciting. So hopefully it pays off. Anyways, with that, let's get into the episode today because it's kind of a long one and I have a script. So hopefully I had to have a script or else this would be a completely chaotic episode because I feel like there's so many things that go into how I manage my time. So I'm going to preface this entire episode by saying this. I am not perfect and I do not have like the perfect method to the madness when it comes to time management and organization overall. I also think that I have some degree of undiagnosed ADHD. I think that social media and having a business has turned me into a completely scattered person, in the sense of I like very rarely have the mental capacity to do any sort of personal admin, if that makes sense. Like, for example, I'm going to Japan this spring, or like late spring or early summer with my mom, and like I physically can't plan it, which is not something that I used to struggle with, but I feel like because I do so many things in my business, I just I can't. And there has to be a reason for that. So this is just what works for me. And the reason why I share this, like why I think maybe I have some sort of undiagnosed something, is because even though I feel like I have that, this system does really help me stay on task and stay on track. So if you also feel that way, where like maybe you feel really scattered, or like you struggle with organization in your work and your personal, like hopefully something here helps you. All this to say, I definitely have some systems down to make sure that I get the things done every day during the week that need to get done. And this applies to work stuff. So yes, I work for myself, but I do follow a pretty strict 9 to 5 Monday through Friday schedule, which I know might surprise some people, but I do that because everyone else works 9 to 5. So like it really would be silly for me to not work when everyone else is working. I do have a few exceptions and flexibility when I need that flexibility, but on a regular basis, I'm working pretty much 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And this also applies to like working out, personal balance, relaxing, socializing, and the like. So the reason, again, why I share that is because you might be thinking, well, this isn't going to work for me because she works for herself and I work a regular job. I think all of this applies, especially from the balance perspective. And also there are some strategies in here that are going to help you if you are someone who works a 9 to 5 and you also are trying to create content or start a business or do something else professional outside of your day job. So here is how this episode is going to work. I'm going to start off with some things that I personally don't do. I've tried pretty much everything under the sun in terms of productivity hacks and like optimization hacks. And I found what does and doesn't stick for me. Just because I don't do these things doesn't mean that you can't. So I always say, I feel like over the last couple of weeks as I've shared stuff, like there's nuance to everything. What I do isn't necessarily what you have to do. I know most of you listening to this know that, but the internet is a crazy place. Then I have a list of 7 overarching things, all related to time management. And they are my schedule and weekly goals. So this is everything that I do every week. My tools I use to stay organized, how I plan my day in the morning, how I end my workday in the evening, focus strategies that actually work for me, productivity strategies that work for me, and boundaries. And there is so much time management information out there, and I'm always learning and trying new things to optimize what I'm doing, but in a healthy way. So hopefully some of these tips help you too, especially like I mentioned, if you're working full time and have a side hustle or want to have a side hustle, but you feel like you don't have the time and you want to have a social life and you want to work out, most of these tips are centered around work because that's what I spend most of my time doing. But that's because if my work isn't streamlined, then it's harder to accomplish the non-work stuff. And I feel like if you work for yourself, you probably understand that too. Like there's always something you can be doing. And so I really try to focus on the important stuff. And then when I have the time, I do the other stuff, but I don't want to be working 24/7 either. You don't have to do everything every day, really important to emphasize, and I definitely don't. But these systems and frameworks help me get the most done that I can within the time that I have, while also giving me space to not work and be able to breathe and like enjoy my life. So with that, let's get into it, and we'll start with the things that I don't do. I don't time block. Because this method, I feel like this is what everyone tells you to do. This just does not work for me. I've tried this before, but the time blocks never lined up to be what they were supposed to be. And I don't live by my Google Cal. Like I don't really use a calendar for planning out my day necessarily. Maybe I should, but I've tried and it really just doesn't work for me. I live by my Notion, which I will talk about. And I use my Google Calendar for meetings. So like I have one and I look at it every day and I use it to sort of map out like, okay, this week I have meetings. If someone needs a meeting with me or I'm doing a podcast recording or something, like I have stuff on my calendar, but I'm not time blocking on a daily basis because it just doesn't do anything for me really. And like, yeah, I just don't like it. I don't feel like, I know some people are like, if it's not on my calendar, I'm not doing it. My brain doesn't work that way. So I've decided that I'm not going to try to force my brain to work that way when it doesn't. The next thing that I don't do is I don't ban myself from my phone. I actually have both of my phones right in front of me right now. And the reason why is because if I tell myself that I can't touch my phone, I find that I want it more. And what I do try to do though is I try to put it away so that I can focus on things, or I keep it face down so I'm not being notified. Like I don't have any notifications enabled on my phone. So like even if I flip my phone over, I'm not going to see anything on there. And I'll try to keep it out of sight or like in a drawer, especially if I have to focus on something. But I don't have a hard rule or line about like banning myself from my phone. That also just doesn't work for me. And also like I work on my phone. So I have to have my phone and I have to be able to have the self-control to like do work stuff and put it away, which I know a lot of people struggle with. And I'm not going to say I don't struggle with that, but I've really learned how to use Instagram and use TikTok for the purpose of posting and put it away and then have scrolling time at a later point. And the third thing that I don't do is I don't use timers. I know a lot of people love the Pomodoro method and I've tried it in the past. And I do think that there's an element of it that works for me, but it's not something that I've successfully been able to stick to. So maybe this year that'll work for me, but like, I don't know. It just doesn't, it's never really stuck. So those are the things that I don't do. And now we'll get into the 7 things that I talked about or like listed out earlier. And we'll start off with my schedule and my weekly goals. So these are like the things that I'm doing every single week in order to operate both my business and just like everything else. Let's get started here with my schedule and my weekly goals. So I'll walk you through everything that I do every week. During the work week, these are the overarching main things that I aim to accomplish. First are all of the maintenance tasks to keep my business alive, which are my 7 break your budget Instagram posts, 7 to 14 break your budget TikToks. Some of those are reposts, some of those are original content. 1 weekly newsletter, although I'm reworking my weekly newsletter. So for February, I'm pretty sure I'm going to pause that. 1 podcast episode, 1 YouTube video that is separate from my YouTube podcast episode. This is new. I'm also now running the Don't Depend on Daddy Instagram. So that's 7 more posts, although those are lower lift posts compared to the Break Your Budget posts. And I'm posting 3 times a week on LinkedIn minimum. It's a lot, but a lot of it is repurposed content. And I really work on batching a lot of the content too. So like I'm not doing content necessarily every single day, like it's condensed into a couple of days per week. I would say that all of this content, just for the sake of distribution, which is what all of this is about 3 full days of work that's stretched throughout the week. And the other 2 days, I would say 1 is fully just like admin stuff, brand and or brand work. And then I like to spend 1 day on ongoing projects. So that would be like launching my basic budgeting template as an example. So that's like the business maintenance stuff. Next would be, I always get 10,000 steps per day. I like to do 3 strength workouts per week. I do 1 day where I'm out of the house. So that is generally a weekday. That's 1 day out of the house, not including the weekends. At least 1 social activity, but ideally 2. And I also cook 95% of my meals at home, which I think is important to share because I'm busy, but I'm making sure that I'm taking care of myself. So during the week, those are like all the things that I accomplish: work, social, health, life in general, which it's a lot. And I don't want to discount and say that it's not, because I know a lot of you listening to this are either doing the same amount or most of you are doing more because you're also commuting to work, which I don't have to do. So for us busy people, we obviously need systems to stay organized and really make sure that things get done. So what I challenge you to do as part of this exercise when you're thinking about time management, and this is something that I did I would say mid to last year, the middle of last year, was I listed everything out that I like to do every week. I listed out the main important things that I need to do for work, the things that I want to do for like health, wellness, and then the things that I want to do for social life. So this is what I aim to accomplish every single week at a minimum. And then if I have more time, or I have, a lull with my work stuff, or I'm ahead, which is something that I've really been trying to doing during this month of January when things tend to be a little bit slower, I'm spending more time at home, then I can, fill that other extra time with whatever I want, like hobbies, which is something I'd like to also add into this, but it's not a requirement necessarily for me to function and be social and whatnot. So that's my overarching schedule. And the action item here, like I mentioned, is for you to list out what's your overarching schedule. So that could be 5 days of work that you do. You don't have to list out the specific tasks like I do. Your health goals, your social goals, and your at home, like cooking goals, because cooking and feeding yourself is an important thing. Number 2 here are my tools and strategies to manage all these things and stay on track. And I have a couple of different things that I do here, again, that permeate all these areas of my life. So for work stuff, I have 2 Notion planners that I'm currently using. I'm working on finding a way to potentially consolidate them, but that sort of ties back to what I mentioned earlier in this episode with like life admin. Like I struggle with that. So I need to dedicate time to this consolidation thing. But the 2 tools that I use first is a Notion weekly planner dashboard. And this is what I use to plan out my week, what my main goals are for the week, and my daily task lists. This is something that I don't have for sale. I have gotten requests when I've shown it for you to buy it. But the reason why I don't have it for sale is because I basically created it off of a template that I already bought. So I feel like that's technically stealing, which I have digital products, so I would never do that. But if you work a 9 to 5 and you want a similar shell to use compared to what my Notion template is like, I recommend that you check out the Own Your Career template, which I don't mean to push as like a self-serving thing, but it is designed very similarly to this. And the only reason why I use Notion is because I think it's a little bit more catered specifically for business, whereas the Own Your Career template is catered more specifically to a corporate job. And it's essentially created so that you can curate a repository of your work and accomplishments to use for important career conversations, your resume, interviews, etc. So part of what I do with my weekly planning is I'm creating like basically a backlog and a repository of all the projects and all the content that I'm making so that I can go back and reference it and repurpose it and use it for the future. So like anything you're doing work-wise, you should always have a repository for. And if you're interested in the Own Your Career template, I'll make sure it's always in the show notes, but I'll highlight it. So the way my Notion template specifically is laid out is I have my overarching goals for the week, and all of my overarching goals for the week ladder up to my monthly goals, which then ladder up to my 12-week goals because I'm following the 12-week year this year, which that's an entirely different episode. If you're interested in it, let me know in the comments and I will put something together where I talk about the 12-week year. It's a book that I read in December. I'm following it this year because I really do think that it's super valuable and it is working for me. So within the weekly spread, like I said, I have my overarching goals for the week. And I identify of all the goals and tasks that I need to do, what are my top 3 most important tasks to move the needle forward. And moving the needle forward means that they are revenue generating activities or activities that will generate revenue for me in the future, because with a business, everything needs to be making money. So I would challenge you on a weekly basis in your work to identify what are the 3 most important tasks. I call them MITs, what must get done this week for you to define a successful week. And taking the time, like the 10 minutes, that's literally all it is at the top of the week, to actually clearly list these out is going to make a difference, not only in your productivity, but also like the output that you have. Once I have my 3 MITs, then I will list out my weekly to-do list. So some of these are tasks that are related to those MITs, and some of them are just like regular tasks. And then I will also list out brands I'm currently work with. So this could be like projects you're working on. And I have a daily broken out to-do list. So Within the template, I have a Monday column, a Tuesday column, a Wednesday column, a Thursday column, and a Friday column. And within that column, I have the theme of the day, which I'll talk about. And then I also have the list of all the things that I need to do. And then I also have a list of all the content places that I need to post on, which again, I will talk about all of these like smaller aspects in later points of this episode because I'm going to go into everything. I personally prefer to have a checklist style to-do list because I like to cross things off. And I use Notion specifically because I don't like to do paper planning. I like being able to go back through the previous weeks, like I mentioned, and kind of have that digital repository. I also find that paper planning, I end up getting disorganized, where Notion, like everything is sort of connected in any digital planner. So again, if you were to use the Own Your Career template from a corporate lens, basically everything that's in there is backlogged all year long. So you're just creating a week over week over week to-do list, which is essentially what I'm doing with this Notion template. And it's very, very, very helpful for keeping track not only of everything that you're working on, but making sure you don't forget to do things and making sure that you don't forget about all of the things that you do. So that's number one, my weekly planner. Number two is a new Notion template that I'm implementing for this year that has been very helpful for me with cross-posting, and it's called Creator HQ, which is from the creator Jay Klaus. And I'm working on getting fully built out in here, but ultimately I am essentially trying to take the content that I'm already creating and distribute it in more places more consistently. So in the past, I would make content for Instagram because I treat Instagram as my main channel, and I would post it to TikTok, but I wasn't doing a great job of making sure that the content I was already created was being distributed to all my channels in one way or another. And as a result, there were platforms that I could have been growing on that I disregarded, and content that could have been used that wasn't reposted. So what I do now is I use this Creator HQ to create blocks for each piece of content, and then I'm scheduling it out to live on all of my different platforms. So each piece of content that I'm spending time making is going as far as I can. And this also helps, again, with the creating the repository of content, because I often will recycle ideas and use different ideas for different types of content. So for example, like I have one video that went up this week that was 5 things I always do with my money. So that idea was a short form video on Instagram. I turned it into a long form video on TikTok. I also will probably turn it into a like mid to long form video here on YouTube in the future. I'll turn it into a weekly newsletter. And then I will also probably repost one of those videos, likely the shorter one, onto my LinkedIn. So that's me using one piece of content that's being pushed to all these different other platforms. And it's not all going up on exactly the same day, like it's kind of being cycled out. And that is what this Creator HQ is really helpful for. And another layer of this, if you are a creator, and maybe you're already doing this, but I just started doing it, is I created a folder on my phone called Finished Videos. So every time I edit a video into its entirety, it gets put into that folder so I can always find it and keep track of like where my content is, because that is something I struggle with. If you have a lot of content and video and photo on your phone, it's very hard to stay organized. So those are the 2 Notion planners that I use and the purpose they both serve. I have my weekly planner that helps me just like map out all the work stuff I have to do every week. And then I have my Creator HQ for my content specifically. Moving on to more personal stuff, we'll do grocery planning and workout planning. So for grocery planning, I just do this on the Notes app on my phone. I basically have one note that I return to and clean out and recycle every single week. And this is currently a work in progress as I adjust to living in Chicago and like figure out my grocery schedule. But what I do for groceries in general, overarching, so that I'm not buying food that I don't eat and I'm actually, spending money on food that's good, I'm not wasting stuff, I'm not wasting money, is I follow what I call the 3-2-1 method. This is cooking 3 dinners, 2 lunches, and 1 breakfast every single week. So basically like 1 breakfast, meaning that 1 week I'm only having oatmeal for breakfast. The next week, maybe I'm doing overnight oats. The next week, maybe I'm doing avocado toast or something. Like it's 1 meal type. Same with lunches. I'm cooking 2 lunch recipes during the week and eating the leftovers. And same with dinners. I'm doing 3. I would say lately it's been more like 4 because I haven't been eating out a ton, but 3-2-1 tended to work for me pretty well in LA. And I feel like as I get more settled here, that'll be the cadence that I'm working with here. And I'll add into the note every week the 3 to 5 meals that I'm cooking, and then the ingredients I already have in my pantry, and then the ingredients that I need. And this keeps things simple. It helps me avoid cooking every single meal every single day, because I feel like that's something where if you're short on time, it gets really cumbersome and you end up ordering out. Like, I always make sure that I have something prepared in my refrigerator that I can recycle no matter what. And then now living here, I've been going to the store more frequently. So I'm still figuring out the specific cadence, but I'm finding that this method still works, whether you go to the grocery store once a week or 3 times a week. I also always freeze stuff. So for example, if I'm making a soup or I'm making a chili or something in a big batch, I will always freeze a portion in a Ziploc baggie in case I'm ever in a pinch or I need to like get through one more meal before I actually need to go to the store. So if you're a busy person and you're cooking during the week, I highly recommend only one. And then as you cook more, you have more options. And then there's always, I would say every week or every other week, like I'm always reaching for something in the freezer. It's also great when you come back from travel, you already have food that's healthy that you've already made in the freezer that you can just reheat and use or eat before you actually go do a grocery shop instead of ordering Uber Eats or something. The last thing here is my workout planning schedule. So to figure out how to fit in workouts for your life, you need to identify like what you actually want to do and how frequently you want to go. So I like to get 2 Pilates classes in a week and 1 strength a week. In LA, I was doing 3 Pilates classes a week, but here I've been going to Core Power Yoga Sculpt and I'm really liking that. So I'm going down to 2 Pilates, 1 strength, which is the Yoga Sculpt. And I like to plan these out a week in advance. So I recommend if you do want to stick to any schedule that you do it a week in advance or you find your set days of the week that you're doing things. So in LA, I went to Pilates Monday, Thursday, Sunday. Here, I've been going to Pilates Tuesday, Friday, and then a Yoga Sculpt either on Sunday or like midweek. So it just really depends on what your current schedule looks like and what classes are available. But if you stay ahead, it makes it easier to make sure you're getting into the classes that you want to get to. And I will just add these into my calendar as if they are meetings. Usually they're outside of the workday, but with Yoga Sculpt specifically, I find that the midday classes like the 3:30 are less full and it just makes for a more pleasant class. So on the days that I'm doing that, I will just plan my day around it. So those are the tools and strategies I use to manage things. Moving on into my routine. So I'm going to go through my morning planning routine and my evening shutdown routine. So these are ancillary of like what I'm doing in the morning before I start working. These are like specifically related to my work planning morning routine and my evening routine. So in the morning when I sit down for work, I will spend 5 to 10 minutes mapping out my day first. So I'll look at what I'm doing or what I have on the agenda for this week. I'll make sure that the tasks that are on my to-do list are actually properly getting spread across my weekdays. So I'm not just putting tasks on my list that I'm not actually looking at. This routine, though, actually starts with my shutdown routine the night before, which I'll talk about in a moment. And yeah, so I'm sitting down, I'm pulling up my weekly planner, and I'll ensure that my checklist for the day is in order of priority of what needs to get done most importantly that day. And I'll identify my MITs for the day. So I identify my MITs for the week, but also my MITs for the day. I'll check my calendar to see if I have any calls, but what I've been doing is I've been trying to push all of my calls to be on Mondays only, so that Monday I'm in call mode day. And then Tuesday through Friday, I kind of have more freedom if I need to add in a call or a meeting or something, but mostly for focused work because most of the work I do is individual. And then that also just helps like avoiding having too many periods throughout the day where it's a wasted time, like a 30-minute or an hour is like kind of an awkward amount of time between calls. So I really just try to avoid that as much as I can. And then once I spend those 5 to 10 minutes planning out my day, I'll get right into it. Usually the first hour of my day is my morning content hour. It's not always a full hour, but it's where I'm spending my time posting my content, creating content, responding to comments, responding to DMs, etc. I have found that posting content in a lot of different places kind of requires finite energy and finite focus. So I just try to condense it all into the first hour of my day so I'm getting it done and I'm not thinking about it. Moving into my evening routine, this is my shutdown routine for the workday. So if you're not following a shutdown routine, this is your sign to really consider doing one. It's from the book Deep Work. And basically, it is your opportunity to like close out the workday and disconnect so you can really enjoy your downtime. And I think that this is super essential for productivity and like managing your time overall, because you have to take focused, disconnected time away from work. So at the end of the workday, before I like close my laptop and move on, I will dedicate 20 to 30 minutes for emails, because I have a tendency to ignore emails. It overwhelms me and I won't look at them. And then I don't get back to people in like a reasonable amount of time, which is not appropriate or cool or conducive to running a business. I will then review my daily to-do list and check everything off if I haven't already. And I'll plan out my to-do list for tomorrow. So because I plan out my to-do list for the next day, I'm A, making sure that I'm carrying over or rescheduling tasks that I didn't get to, but B, I'm setting myself up for success for the next day because I'm not waking up and thinking, what am I going to do today? And again, this applies whether you work for yourself or you work for another person. Like mapping out the high level things you need to do the next day, the night before, you'll start the next day feeling significantly better. And then that's pretty much it for my shutdown routine. And then I will just close my laptop and I will move on. And I really try to disconnect from work at night, which I recommend you do. If you have like email and stuff on your phone, either put a blocker on there or really work on not connecting to it, because sometimes I'll be in relax mode and I'll open my Gmail just out of habit and I'll see something and I'm like, oh, this is annoying. I feel like I have to do it now. And I just don't think that that's good for being productive during the actual day, the next day when you're truly working, if that makes sense. Moving on to focus strategies. So I have 3 things here that I find really help me focus truly. First and most importantly, this is probably something you've heard before, but it's eating the frog. This is what I do the first thing in the morning after my content. So I'll do my content hour. Sometimes I even do this before my content hour if it's really pressing, whether it be getting an email done that I've been avoiding or a project or task that overwhelms me. I try to get the hardest thing that I need to do or the thing that is overwhelming me the most out of the way as soon as I can, because it makes me feel better and it proves that whatever mental block that I have going on in my brain isn't real. This is something I really recommend you try. It can be hard to stick to, but if you really push yourself to try to do the hard thing first, the rest of the day I find always goes a lot smoother. Second is what I mentioned in my shutdown routine is I block 20 minutes at the end of the day for emails specifically. And this is really helpful for me to not only finish the day strong. I mean, I do monitor my email like a couple of times a day just so that I can respond to inbound requests from brands or time sensitive things. But I otherwise will save email replies until the end of the day so that I'm not getting derailed by something that's not like really urgent or important in that moment. I aim to get my inbox down to 0. It doesn't happen every single day, especially if there's something that I need to return to, but as close to 0 as possible before I sign off. And yeah, really what this helps me do is make sure that I'm not focusing time and energy, especially during like productive time, on non-urgent requests. This is a boundary. I think it's really important to learn what your boundary is with email. And third is implementing repeatable checklists. So I mentioned this earlier, but this really works for me. A major part of my Notion template on my weekly planner is checklists that I repeat every day for the tasks that I have to do every day. Mostly this is related to content, but a big pillar of consistency is actually sticking to what you say you're going to do every single day. And for me, I have a checklist every single day for my content hour, which is all my platforms. So Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, and I think Instagram Story, and now my Don't Depend on Daddy Instagram. So I will go and post all the content that needs to go there from my Creator HQ onto those platforms, and I will check them off as they go. Sometimes I schedule out my LinkedIn posts and whatnot, but for the rest of it, I'm just posting it that same morning on my own. And then I will take some time to reply to comments if I missed them from the day before. I don't always get to this, but I do my best to reply to people. And I'll spend a few minutes in my DMs from the night before, or, if I just need to respond to general inquiries and whatnot. I'll make sure I post an Instagram story if I'm posting that day. And once they're all checked, I move on. And this process really applies for any type of repeatable tasks. So if you have like a weekly report or a daily cycle or, anything that you do regularly, I would systematize it in a way by creating this type of checklist because it's really motivating and it makes sure that you don't forget to do things. And I add it to my checklist every single day. I think people think that if you do something every day, you don't have to put it on your to-do list. Then that's how you don't do it. So if I have something that has to get done every single day, which is content, which is the engine that keeps my business alive, it's on my to-do list in this format every single day. Moving on to number 6 here. These are productivity strategies that work for me to get more done in less time and just be more consistent overall. And all of these are also helpful if you work a 9 to 5 and you want to balance creating content. So something that I've been doing this year, especially with lifestyle content, is I pick one day of the week where I film everything that I do. If any of you out there are content creators or you're trying to incorporate creating content to build up your business, I recommend you pick one day per week where you film your entire day. So for me, I have my Break Your Budget content and a separate schedule for that. But with Don't Depend on Daddy, I'm adding in the lifestyle content, and this is harder for me to film because it's outside of my comfort zone and it's not part of my regular schedule. So to combat this and make sure I'm actually capturing content so that I can be consistent on that page, I choose one day a week as my film day, and I'm filming everything I do. So that could be, my day, it's a day in the life. And then I'm also filming my morning routine, my makeup routine, my skincare routine, my shower routine, what I eat that day, what I'm working on, everything. And then I can create, 10 to 20 videos from just that one day, what I'm wearing. I did this for the last few weeks, specifically for Don't Depend on Daddy and my LTK. And it's been a game changer for me. And this is the best thing ever because it helps you avoid feeling burdened by filming every single day, which I just don't want to be on camera every day. And I find that if I set myself up to do that, then I'm not getting consistent content. And my recommendation is just that you make sure you create a list in advance of the content that you want to capture so you can stay organized, make the editing process easier, and make sure you actually get the content you wanted to film. So that's number 1. Number 2 here is theming out the week by day where I can. It's not possible every single day, but I try to focus my days around a common theme, like a common task. So for example, if I'm doing a planning day, I'm planning my podcast, I'm planning my YouTube, I'm planning my content, I'm trying to do all my planning on one day. That's like a back-end computer day. If I'm doing filming, I'm filming multiple videos. So if I'm getting dressed and I'm doing my film day, I'm also probably recording a podcast or a YouTube video or a couple of podcasts or a couple of YouTube videos. If I'm doing a content creation or editing day, I'm focused on just editing as much as I possibly can. Theming ensures that you aren't wasting time from switching back and forth, because having so much in between tasks really like your brain power is not getting to 100% if you're going from filming to editing to content planning, etc. Keeping things organized by task style has been really, really helpful for me. And this is also really helpful if you're balancing content with a 9 to 5. So maybe you can't theme your 9 to 5 work, that's totally fine, but you can absolutely theme your content work outside of your 9 to 5. And this is what I did when I was also working my 9 to 5 job. I would have one day after work where I would do all my filming for all of my different videos. I'd have another day where I'm editing. I'd have another day where I'm writing captions and creating graphics. I'd have another day where I was doing outreach. Having those set schedules and the themed tasks just makes getting things done easier. And it's a lot easier to theme, going back to the earlier point, when you have a weekly plan and mapping out your most important tasks so you can identify which day you're going to do those things. It's all boils down to just organization and taking the extra 10 minutes, which seems to be a theme for me this year, of really thinking about what do I need to accomplish and how am I going to do it and when. Very, very helpful for scheduling. Next is my designated content hour, which I've talked about, but basically this has really been helpful for me for scaling and being present across multiple platforms. I learned this from Julia Broom. She has a social page. I don't know the handle, but you can just look up Julia Broom. And I spend the first hour of my day, like I mentioned, either filming a video, posting my content, checking it off my list, responding to comments, reviewing DMs, etc., to make sure that I am present on my socials. So if you're balancing a 9 to 5 too with content, I recommend that you spend or dedicate a 15-minute calendar block. It doesn't have to be an hour, where you are sitting down and posting your content. Put it on the calendar, because especially at the beginning, the consistency is so important. And I feel a lot of people who are doing 9 to 5 and they're also trying to do content will get onto TikTok and be like, hey, I haven't posted in a while because I've been busy. Like, you all have 15 minutes where you could do this and stay consistent with it. So you just have to schedule it in like any other important meeting or priority. It doesn't have to be an hour, but that small time block where you're like, okay, I'm posting this on Instagram and I'm posting this on TikTok, it will make the biggest difference with your consistency on these different platforms. The last productivity strategy here is getting dressed and put together every day. So I didn't used to do this. If you look back at my old videos, I'm always in a sweatshirt. I never have my makeup done. And like, that's totally fine. But this is new this year and it's helped a lot with productivity. I've had a very productive January. I'm getting dressed every day. I'm putting on a little makeup. I take the 10 minutes in the morning to put myself together. And I no longer make excuses for it, even on Fridays. It's Friday. I'm sitting here. I'm dressed. I'm being productive. I have makeup on. Like, I am using my work day for work. And the way that I'm doing that is I'm getting ready and treating it as if I was going to work. So getting dressed completely changes the vibes. And it does make a difference in how you feel and your motivation, because if you're wearing jeans, you're way less likely to sit on the couch. So if you work from home, or, maybe it's a Saturday and you're trying to do content, get dressed and really put yourself together. It doesn't have to be a lot. I'm not wearing a lot of makeup. I'm wearing a tinted sunscreen and a little bit of blush. And I don't even know if I put mascara on. I can't remember. But like, I'm not wearing a ton of makeup, but just that little bit makes the biggest difference in how I feel and how I treat my day. Because I'm like, oh, I got put together. Like, I don't want to waste it. So really, really, really recommend getting dressed in the morning if you struggle with motivation or you struggle with just organization or productivity in general. The last thing here are boundaries. And this is really important for protecting your downtime and protecting your peace. So I have a few things here. First is that every week I implement what's called a parasympathetic day. And I learned this from Sif Hader. She is from the Dream Bigger podcast. She also owns the company Array, which is like bloat pills. I don't take them. I don't ever plan to. However, I like her podcast. Basically what it is one day where you unplug from all of your work stuff and you have like a low cortisol, taking care of yourself kind of day. So maybe you're going on a walk or you're getting your nails done or you're reading a book. You're not putting any pressure on yourself to do work or social stuff. So for me, this is, one of the weekend days, whether it be Saturday or Sunday, depending on what I have going on for the day, where I don't set an alarm. I shut my shades. If you listen to my winter episode, I usually sleep with my shades open. I'll sleep in as late as I can. I'll hang out on the couch. Maybe I'll take a long walk, and I just take my time with the day. There's no pressure. If I'm feeling up for something social, I'll add it in, but I try to stay off my phone with the exception of just posting my content. And this is essential for me, for giving my brain space to recover and also ensuring that I'm not burning myself out, because sometimes, especially from a creative standpoint, like you have to take a step away so that you can reset and actually look at things with a clear mind. So really, really important to think about implementing a parasympathetic day. It's worked very well for me on the weekend to not feel like I have to do so many things. Second is I say no to things that aren't aligned, and this includes work and social stuff. So I don't do free favors for people anymore. I used to do this. I just don't have the capacity to do it. There are some exceptions to this, but I do get a lot of requests from people in my personal life and people who I don't know to pick my brain or jump on a call. And I say this respectfully, but like, on what planet does someone who I don't know think I'm going to get on the phone with them for free advice? Like maybe some people think that that's a nice thing to do, but like, I don't know. Why would I do that? Like, I have things to do, no offense. So this applies to work stuff. It applies to social stuff. I don't force myself to do things. I'm working on like pushing myself to do things socially, especially since I just moved. But like, if I really don't want to go, I'm not forcing myself to go. And this also applies from a work standpoint to non-paid engagements. I get a lot of requests for speaking engagements or to run a workshop at a virtual event for free. I don't work for free, and I'm drawing a hard line on that in the sand for 2025, and I'm declining these offers. I think it's ridiculous. You have to create boundaries on what is and isn't worth your time. It's really, really important. Next is I don't respond to everyone or everything. So like I mentioned earlier, I get a lot of requests and a lot of emails and a lot of DMs. And while I try to, be nice to everyone and respond to as many DMs as I can, sometimes I can't. And particularly with emails, I get a lot of like spam emails or emails from people asking for financial advice and whatnot. Like, transparently, unless you are a legitimate brand who was inquiring about a paid opportunity, that goes without saying, a paying customer of mine seeking help or advice on one of my products, because I always prioritize people emailing me about their templates or if they have a question or whatever. If you have bought one of my products, you get my attention within 24 hours. I do my best to make that time less. Somebody that I already know, you're sending a kind note or a testimonial, which obviously I'm going to respond to that. If you're not one of those 4 things, I'm probably not going to respond to you unless you're like, there's like some exceptions to that, obviously. But if you send me a cold inbound for your service that I didn't ask or inquire about, I'm not interested, and I'm probably just going to block you, because people will inbound me of saying like, I can edit your videos, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And it's just like, I respect the hustle, but if I didn't reply to you, it's because I didn't want to. It's not because I didn't see it. And I don't want you to email me 100 times telling me you recorded a loom, helping me when I didn't ask for the help. And also like, why are you doing that? I find it to be so annoying. Something that I learned from Lauren Bostic is that you don't owe anybody a reply. And that doesn't mean that you have to be really harsh about it, obviously. And I know I kind of sound a little bit harsh just because this really bothers me. And I don't want to be harsh about it. But just because somebody wants my time doesn't mean that they get it. And I apologize if you can hear sirens in the background. I live in a city now, so we're just going to keep going. But being really ruthless about this is essential for actually ensuring that you are prioritizing your time and making sure that you're spending the time that you do have on work that will actually move the needle forward. I spent so much time in 2024 doing busy work, responding to people, doing people favors. I'm not doing it anymore. Last thing here, my camera battery is going to die, so I'm going to hustle through it, is I have 2 phones. One is my work phone. So that is it doesn't have service. It just has Wi-Fi, and I use that specifically for content. I don't really text or anything on it. And then I have my real phone that has service, which I use for texting and going out of the house. But my content phone, my work phone, is only for content. Like, I use that at home and occasionally if I'm out of the house capturing content, and my other phone is for communication. This has helped me so much with boundaries, especially in social settings and out of the house and everything. So if you create content full time, I recommend you get a second phone. I know it's expensive, but it's so worth it. Anyways, those are all of my tips. I hope you enjoyed. If you have questions about anything, obviously, let me know. This is always a work in progress, but I do find that following some of these rules, strategies, etc., have really helped me keep my focus, which is something I struggle with. So with that, I will catch you in the next one, and thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to leave me a review. Make sure to follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next week.